Hey, I'm back. This is my third video. I'm going to start telling about what's going on as of today. And it's pretty wild, and it's just, it is the most important part of my story because I finally plateaued and got to where the universe needs me and wants me to be. And so, anyway, remember back in my first video when I yelled out, "God, make me your brightest angel." And that's when I had all those spiritual things happen, and I ended up in the nut farm or the mental institution. So then, anyway, I went back home. I'm going to just review that real short. So then you can catch up with it again, especially if you haven't seen my first video. But I recommend that you do see them in sequence. But anyway, I tried to forget about what happened because I knew I wasn't crazy, and the doctors were trying to tell me that I was delusional, and I knew I wasn't, especially with the things I experienced. I knew that God was working on me and healing me and showing me what was going on with the universe and how I was a part of it and how He needed me um, in the role that I am finding myself in today. So anyway, like I said, I reverted back to basically just being a mom, doing the best I could. I was still very sick with the fibromyalgia. And then remember, I ended up getting divorced because I knew my husband was suffering and the kids were suffering, and they needed a new female figure in the house to help take care of them and to be a good wife, have a good wife for my husband. So I remember moved into a new home, and then I had my friend who used to give me the medical marijuana. We ended up becoming really good friends, and he would come visit my house. And one night, that's when he said, "If have I ever tried meth?" And I said no, but I knew it was a white powder that you snorted. And I knew that as far as cocaine and crank, I really enjoyed those when I did them, and it was years since I have had that. At that point, it's been years before that, and so I was up for it. I was game, and I said, "Sure, let's try it." He said he knew I was suffering from a lot of fatigue and tiredness, and he said it'll help with your energy. So I'm like, "God, let's do it then. Let's go for it." So anyway, I would always, whenever I smoked pot or drank a lot, it would loosen my inhibitions up and it would open my mind up more to my spirituality. And I would talk constantly about God and how He worked in our world and why He did the things He did. And I would always counsel people, like why their baby died and how, they went through it for a particular reason, and I would try to help them through their pain, and also just different scenarios. I've always been one to help people. I've always enjoyed that. Even as of today, I still do. But anyway, so I did the meth that night, and it triggered my spirituality just to peak. Physically, it didn't do anything for me. It made my body, it didn't do anything to my body, but it lit my mind up. And I started delving into Satan's world. I didn't know him well. I was I was actually very fearful of him, but I became very curious of him at the same time. Like I said, when I was a little girl, I always wondered why he created Satan. And I didn't mention when I was married in the beginning, when I had my little daughter as a baby. I remember one night when I was in there changing her diaper, and I felt an energy behind me, and it felt very large, and it felt dark, and it felt curious, like it was a curious energy, and it felt like it was a lonely energy. I sensed all that about it, and I just sensed it was Satan. And that's back then, that's when I had fear over him. I could barely say his name without shaking. And because he only had a bad rap up until now, how I know him now, um, because he is a part of all of us. We all have, the devil inside, so to speak. We all have God a part of us too. And it's like I'll jump forward into saying we need to just tame the devil within, and we need to become the master of our inner evil so it doesn't take over. We can't control what comes into our mind, but we can control what comes out in our behavior. So, anyway, back to the night that I did the meth. I was thinking back about that time when I felt his energy behind me that day or that night. There was another night when I got out of bed to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and I had this fear just engulf me when I got out of the bed, and I felt it just encompass me. It was just an overwhelming, fearful feeling. And I went in the bathroom and I sat down, and fear was just growing. And all of a sudden, the shower door popped open. And oh my God, that freaked me out. I called my husband, come here. Oh my God, the shower door just opened. And anyway, he came in. There wasn't anything, obviously. And so I have my suspicions that Satan's been in my life for a long time. Because back then, even before my awakening, when I yelled out, God, make me your brightest angel, I would talk about God all the time. I was always very spiritual. And from what I've heard, and it makes sense to me, the closer you are to God, the more Satan is interested in you. Because we have more of a light and a more of a presence about us that is attractive to him. So anyway, when I did the meth that night, I'll go back to this. I started just really focusing on Satan and who he was and what was he all about. Could he love? Was he only evil? How did he work in our lives? Why did God put him here? And so I had all these questions. And when I did the meth that night, it opened the door to that world. And if anyone out there, I'm sure there's people out there that are watching this that have done meth, it opens up a demonic world to where people are very aware of a demonic realm where they see spirits, or they call them shadow monkeys, some people do, or they'll see really weird type images, but two people at the same time will see the same thing. So they know they're not like tripping completely, because if another person's seeing the same thing at the same time, it's definitely something there. And there's also an awareness about aliens, or, beings from other planets that are in our lives. And also, a lot of times people feel like they're being followed or watched and monitored when they're on meth. And that's actually accurate. We are being watched and monitored, and even at times followed. The people that have those things happening, I think, have different qualities about them that the higher intelligence or the aliens are interested in. I know they use us, and they can put things in our mind to where we can actually come up with inventions of creating and advancing our world. And I have a feeling, to me, it makes sense that they have been in our world and they've integrated with us, and they can take on our form. I believe that because I've had interactions with ones I feel strongly suspicious that were of that other world. So anyway, I started realizing after I did the meth that night, and started getting into Satan's world, I was still always with God, but I started getting angry at God. And Christ ended up coming into my life around this time too. I never believed in him because I never met him. I never witnessed miracles he performed. I never, I've never saw him for myself. But when I would hit what they call mania during particular times during this period, I would write on a piece of paper that it would say Jesus was here. And looking back now, what makes sense to me is that his spirit would come in me and he would write through me to let me know he was there with me. And anyway, that's when I became familiar with Jesus, or introduced to the fact that he is real. And another day, this reminds me of when I became in a complete mania. And for me, mania is an awareness, a hyper awareness of what's going on in our universe. It makes me look and sound crazy as a loon or delusional, because most people aren't aware of how things really are in our universe, in our world. But anyway, back to what I would do when I was completely manic. I remember going into my art room one day, and I was designing a new flag for the world. I want the world to unite as one. To me, I still to this day believe that that's what God wants, a universal God consciousness, where we are all connected and we are not fighting over whose religion is right. We're not fighting over land. We're not fighting over oil. We're not fighting over what race and creed is more powerful or important in this world. We become all equal, and I can see our future. I can prophesize, and things I've been saying have already come to fruition. Things like getting the computer chip implanted in our bodies to take care of ID, and being able to track our location, and paying our bills, getting rid of all the paper, getting rid of the paper trails, part of advancing our human race. And in this world we're advancing through our technology. And then the other thing I've been saying is that our bodies are going to be rebuilt, and we're going to have eternal life and eternal youth through this manufactured building of our bodies. We are going to become superhuman, and we'll have abilities that are going to be beyond what I can see. I wouldn't even doubt if we can actually eventually fly. I don't know how that's going to look, but I know we'll be able to be like almost bionic, because if we think things or come up with ideas, we'll be able to eventually do it. That's why we're coming up with those ideas. That's why we're coming up with those inventions in our mind, because we're being inspired to actually create that eventually. And like Star Wars or Star Trek, with being beamed down, and just the kind of medical care they had, all that kind of stuff. We're going to advance into that type of technology. So anyway, one day I was prophesizing to somebody, and she was open enough to let me just go on. And when that happens, more information comes into me, and I start channeling. And it's like God shows me images, and I'm able to see things into our future, and that's where prophecy comes from. And I was saying how our bodies are going to be rebuilt, and I said I saw this dense yellow plastic image in my mind that I've never seen before, and the name polycarbon came to my mind, which I've never heard of the substance before. So I ended up Googling it later, and I said that those are going to be our bones, where we won't break anymore. Our bones won't break. So that they will be made of a dense plastic called polycarbon. And I ended up Googling that, and sure enough, it is a dense plastic. Well, speed up to, that'll tie this into the fact that I'm onto something with that. Years later, I was walking by a TV, and something told me to stop and look at it, and it was a sci-fi channel movie, and they were rebuilding a man, and as soon as I was watching it, they were saying they're putting polycarbon bones in him. And I thought that was just validation that I was correct about that. And anyway, a lot of people think, especially the religious side of society, believe that the computer chip is the mark of the beast and that they're not going to receive it, because it says in Revelations that we will be able to purchase and sell things with this mark. And of course, with the computer chip, we will be able to buy and sell things. We'll also be able to keep track of who we are, or our identity, and we'll have no thefts, no identity thefts. Anyway, I even hear that there's some people that are going to go into their own own part of their property in the world, have pieces of property that they're going to go evacuate into during this period, because they're afraid that if they get the mark, that Jesus will reject them and they won't be part of the kingdom. Well, to me, that's rubbish, and it's sadly not correct. To me, it's not logical, because logic is part of my prophecy, where you can't deny the fact that what's going on with what I'm saying is going to happen in the future makes complete sense, because it's a step-by-step part of our advancing. So as far as that goes, in the Revelations, I believe in the Revelations. Like I said, Satan has something to do with manipulating things and passages in the Bible. And to me, what makes sense is that he would put things in there to see if he could fuck people up. And God allows this. And I believe it's to have God be able to select the not the weak and feeble-minded people that are followers, but the people who are blaze their own trail into their inner belief in their inner truth and relationship that they have with the universe, that they discover on their own, that they don't have to go to a book, that they don't have to go to other people to find answers. Sure, we can get answers from other people or ideas, but to follow another person because we are lost, to me, is very dangerous. If you don't like what I'm saying, don't follow what I'm saying. It's so important to follow your gut instincts about what you think is accurate. And if you don't know, just leave an open mind. That's all you need, is an open mind to receive things. And if it settles right, you'll know it. It'll just feel like, oh, that makes sense. And then you'll know it's right. But if you have that feeling of like, oh, it makes sense, and then you go back to, but it says in the Bible, or it says in the Quran, or whatever book, that this is what's going to happen if I do this, then I believe we're being led astray. And, it just doesn't make sense that there's one book in this whole world that is the only accurate Holy Writ. To me, all the Holy Writs are inspired by God, but influenced as well by Satan, because we are all made, and there's no way anyone can deny this if they think about it, we're made up of good and evil, light and dark. We are channels to both worlds. Anything we think, say, or do, we are allowing which world to come through us or in us. And that's like, that's power that we have, or weakness. It depends on how you allow it to happen into your life. So I'm going to go back to some experiences I had when I started realizing Satan was part of our universe and an important part of our lives. It was about 18 years ago, and it was after my meth use, when my mind started opening up more and becoming more aware, that I was listening to music, and I always was, but nothing really stood out to me other than they were romantic songs. But one day I was listening to it one evening, and I'm like, wait a minute, there's words that are trying to say something to me, and the words that they're directing it to me, they're trying to get me to understand things about them, and who are them? Satan and Jesus. And now I realize God is using it too. God and Jesus are separate. Yet they are a part of the Trinity, and I do believe in the Trinity. And that's biblical, but like I said, some of the stuff in the Bible I believe is accurate. As far as how Jesus and God are separate yet together, is God is the creator, and Jesus is his son that performed and was God's messenger and spoke for God while he came on this earth. I know them personally now as of today, and I'm going to get into it a little bit as far as how well, and it's going to blow your mind. Blows my mind, and I'm the one going through it. But Jesus has a very sweet nature, and he's not passive aggressive. He's not an asshole like God can be. I think if you guys all think about it, the things that this world, that he allows in this world, can be pretty heinous, and God is in control. But I believe, and it makes sense to me, is that God is of good and evil because he created good and evil, and we are in his image. So anyway, those are some of my theories and understanding of what's going on with the higher powers. So anyway, back to when I started knowing the music was being directed and they're trying to get something said to me. The music started becoming more inundated and directed to me even more. And then I started realizing that each word they were fighting over me. And I know that sounds grandiose and far-fetched, but if you hear my whole story throughout these tapes I'm going to be making, it'll make sense to you and you'll understand. And I have so much proof today that what I'm saying is not delusional, and that I am here to carry a really important message to everybody. So anyway, I started just going nuts. I mean, it just tore me because I always, even though I was afraid of Satan, by that time I started realizing, wait a minute, I've always been in Satan's world, even as a little girl. I'm writing my autobiography, so you guys will know in detail how well I knew that world. But it's sin, or it's like physical pleasures and physical escapes from our painful reality that we are experiencing until we have an awakening and we become part of the universe and we get a natural energy in us and we don't need to escape anymore. After we master our mind, we get this inner peace and tranquility and serenity because our mind's not in turmoil anymore with fear. And fear is the illusion that Satan puts in our mind. He's our challenger. He's the one that's going to select the weak and feeble-minded. The demonic is what brings those people down, and the ones that end up performing those evil acts that get put in their mind, that actually perform them and take it outside their mind and actually do those things, are the weak and feeble-minded. And that's what God is allowing to happen, to select, like Darwin's theory is partially correct, I believe, the selection of the fittest, whatever that term is, process. It's a selection of the fittest. I'm sorry, I can't think of the name. It'll come to me. Anyway, you know what that is. And anyway, so that stumps me. This bothers me. Anyway, I'll probably edit that. Anyway, so back to the music. I started all of a sudden, the words, when the women started singing, it would be like it was my story. My story was coming out onto the music. It was awful to like come to that awareness that all of a sudden I am being downloaded somehow, and vulnerability, that my story was being broadcasted through the music. It was very intrusive to me and humiliating, like I said. But then I came to this revelation that, wait a minute, everyone can relate to these songs. And so I know it's going to help other people. And so, how do I know, since you guys can relate to them, that they are my songs? Because you'll just have to keep listening to all this. It sounds so far fetched, but God put me here, and He has created me to have these experiences. So this one day I would be able to share and explain all this stuff to people. I know many mysteries of the universe now. I don't know everything because I am not God, obviously. I have God's spirit in me, and I also have satanic energy in me as well, but I'm very balanced. My my energies are extreme. Um, Everybody, like I said, has got both worlds inside of them, good and evil. Some are very low vibration, very minimal, being used very minimally as far as the world's using them. But people like me, and I think it's something to do with our mind, is more lit up, where we have more abilities to perform different things. So the world's able to use us in a more powerful way. That anyway, so that's what is going on with me, is that my mind is multifaceted the way God created my mind. There's nothing my mind cannot come up with or do. I'm self-taught with everything. And I don't take that as a vanity. I take that as a gift that God's given me. And as far as it's a gift, I give myself credit for action, that I'm actually using the gifts. And some people stay so humble, saying, "Oh, God, by the grace of God," like I'm in recovery. I've been in recovery for 12 years now. By the grace of God, I be sober another day. Well, by the grace of God, of course, but is it your grace that's going to keep you sober? You're the one doing the footwork. You're the one taking action, or you're not taking action to keep being sober, or to be free and serene and happy and content, and in a joyful state in our life. This brings me to one song that came on among so many other. There's so much of the music is being used as inundated with the universe and me now. But the song came on because I kept saying how I wanted us to both worlds get along and stop the battle. I wanted to bring Satan into paradise. I wanted him to be able to be loved and to love. I wanted God to make up with him. I wanted them to bow to each other. I felt that I could do something about that and have them do that, because I was being turmoil. It was in turmoil for me that I had to choose. I got to the point where I was just saying, "Share me, quit fighting over me," because the music, they would go back and forth. And anyway, so the music, after I started being super firm and saying, "Share me, knock it off, or you can both fuck off," the music started getting more fluid and flowed better. It was like, looking back now, that's what they wanted me to figure out. So they couldn't come out and tell me, "This is what you need to do. This is us. This is how the truth is. This is what the truth is." I had to find it out for myself. And I was misled with so many different ways of people saying what the truth was. Just like all of us in this world are basically led astray as far as in our spiritual lives. Um, Unless you are able to take yourself out of the cookie cutter religions and find your own spiritual path. To me, that is pure. Spirituality is pure, it's God given. Religion, like I'm sure many have heard, is man made, and to me, it's tainted by man. And that's why there's so many things that are fallible in different religions. They're all beautiful to an extent, and they're all God inspired, but then there's the stuff that gets all muddled up and causes conflict amongst each other with the different religions. They're saying, I'm the right one, you guys are going to hell, we're saved, and like, they're a cult, so they're satanic, and whatever, it's just like this segregates us from each other, and it causes us actually to have wars amongst each other as far as different religions. There's been religious wars from the beginning of time. So to me, God doesn't, that's not what God represents. God represents what he wants, but he was allowing it, don't get me wrong, for us to finally come to a place where we all get along. And that's where he's using me. I know that sounds, like I said, grandiose, but listen to my entire story. And I'm going to cut it here for now. And please, if you have questions or comments or thought-provoking ideas or anything, please comment and inspire me to continue this. It's been a long, hard road for me. We all have had long, hard roads. Mine's been extreme. My pleasure has been greater than anybody's pleasure, because I used to have people say, I want what she's got, when they would see me in my, hyper manic or my manic modes, where I was like overabundance of joy and happiness and exuberance pouring out of me and anything, all that. Or my depression was so low that I didn't want to exist anywhere in anything anymore. So anyway, that's we're all, have those experiences. Mine are just extremely extreme. Now they're pretty much in the middle and a little bit above average, which is a good place. And that has a lot to do with the fact I've mastered my mind. I don't allow my negative thinking anymore to inundate my mind. So anyway, I'm going to stop with this, and please do comment or like or dislike. I need to hear some feedback. And like I said, please, if you have questions or comments, let them out. And even if it's negative, just tell me, and give me a reason to write back to you and explain things. Let's do this together. I can't do this by myself. So anyway, I wish you all well. I wish you, and I hope you follow me with this and support me, because it's not an easy thing for me to do this. The story's not glamorous. My autobiography is going to be much more in detail. So anyway, peace out, and love to all, and let's all get along and love each other, hopefully soon, someday. All right, bye.